Hello and welcome to Michael and Ivanka's Grand Podcast. It's a podcast where we are, in lieu of getting guests on this year, we're reading some of their words so that we can sort of discuss. It's like a preamble to having them in the actual room. It's like we'll kind of like we'll go over some of the things they've said and some of the things they've talked about, so that we can just kind of, it's not just me and Ivanka the whole time. Just talking about what we think. We're sort of focusing on what other people think for a bit, which I think is a bit more expansive. My name's Michael Forrest.
And I'm Ivanka Magic.
And it's International Women's Day, so we decided we were going to do this anyway, but we're going to just double down on the fact that there's some women doing great things, and we're going to talk about just read out some stuff. Starting this week with this Facebook post that Greta Thunberg wrote that helped me to see what Ivanka saw. Was that rambly?
That was good. Where's the...
Oh, let me send it. So if you look in the notes, you can find a link to the post and read along. Anything you'd like to add to my summary?
No, I think it'll come out in the wash.
Okay. This is an early 9 a.m. recording.
Okay,
and
sorry.
The wakitude needs to be amped up a bit. So, yeah, well, maybe we'll just have some chit chat and see what comes of that first, shall we? How's it going, Ivanka?
It's going well. I have started I'm back at Brighton Hove Council working on a sustainable social care initiative, which means, so I'm working with them for 5 or 6 weeks to help make a business case for some stuff. So on the positive side, enjoy is a funny word, but it is satisfying to be working on something like social care, and this time it's adults and children's, which is brilliant. And so I've done 3 days. It's very nice not to have to commute. I was sitting having dinner with my family at just before 7 last night, with having arrived home at 5:30, chilled, cooked food, no rushing in the door off the train and shoving food in my mouth. So that was very pleasant, and it's very nice. And but one of the things that made me think that there was 2 things that have happened this week that made me think we really should at least mention International Women's Day, because this idea, I think it's easy to forget that there are still fights to be fought, even in progressive society. So one nice thing happened this week, in that somebody that I don't really know tweeted something very complimentary about me with the hashtag International Women's Day, which it really did set me up, because it happened on Sunday, and it's sort of receiving an unsolicited compliment and for the thing she said, at Ivanka does us all a favour by starting conversations that really truly matter, which made me then feel more emboldened, if that's the word. And then when I arrive in my new work scenario, a few people haven't worked with me before, and I don't really have the time or energy anymore to wait for men to conclude that I'm not incompetent. So in the same way, my last contract, day 2, I had to go, excuse me, what did you just do? I had to do it again this time. And it's just it makes me angry in my stomach, in the pit of my stomach, that, I am... that I have to be spoken over and mansplained to. And if we put me on a scale of women who will speak up for themselves and who are not shy about speaking up and who can at least sound authoritative, I'm quite high up. So if they're doing it to me, how is it for the 25, 26-year-old woman just coming out of who's quite shy and who doesn't want to get her elbows out and have a fight every time she meets some new male colleagues? And I got home, I was telling my husband about it, and he said, he met the marketing director for a hotel chain, and he said, she did look young, but she started the conversation with, I might look young, literally. I might look young, but I've been doing this for 15 years and I've got 3 children. And he was like, no bloke introduces himself like that.
Yeah.
It's just not necessary.
Did I bring up the thing that gave me that little bit of empathy into that world when in a bike shop where the guy was like, I wanted a new tyre for something or other, and then the guy was sort of explaining to me something that I was like, yeah, I know this. I've changed a tyre before, and I sort of come out with Sharon. I'm going, I'm sort of angry, right? And it makes me quite intensely. I'm like, God, guy, and I was just like, all right, yeah, or okay. And sort of Sharon's like, oh, he's just, trying to he's got a chance to show what he knows and he's just enjoying that. And I'm like, yeah, but he's telling me, I just can't stand it when people try and tell me something I already know. And she goes, well, yeah, I mean, this is what we deal with 20 times a day. Yeah. It just sounds exhausting, and I don't know how I wouldn't be able to deal with it. I just be
it's like,
fuck you, I'm out of it, every other day.
Well, I was sitting there going, can I do this? And I phoned a friend of mine and she said, so how's it going at the new gigs? I said, I'm going to give you a verbal demonstration of how it's going. I was on the phone walking down the street and I just went, and this group of kids just looked at me like, what the hell is wrong with her? And I was like, I sort of gave this, because, I was like, and then it was just unbelievable. I just find it so angry making. Anyway, which is what made me think that even though on our list we are very gender balanced, Michael and Ivanka's Grand podcast is a gender balanced podcast.
It has it needs more women really to cancel out the centuries and millennia of patriarchy, obviously, but I think at least one of each is good.
But we've got, but even in terms of what we read and who we refer to and who we're fans of, we're well balanced. But I think that we don't use gender as one of our classification. We can't read that. It's by a lady. But so generally we have a plethora of women that we admire and men. And so as it's International Women's Day, I thought we should highlight the fact that yes, we are reading some papers. Just everybody note these are women who know what they're saying. And so it's
also
really
know that we were going to talk about them anyway, so shut up, stop being stupid.
Exactly.
Did you read out your complimentary tweet? Because if you read out yours, then I'm going to read out some nice comments I got this morning as well.
Okay. Let's make it Michael and Ivanka's adoration moment.
Autofellatio moment.
So it's whether it's her thinking on UX research and design in her blog or her exploration of big issues over at Podcast Grand, Ivanka does us all a favour by starting conversations that really truly matter. Thanks, Ivanka. #IWD, International Women's Day. #a day is not enough.
There you go. And so we are going to follow through on a day is not enough, aren't we? We're going to do it at very least 3 weeks.
We are, yes.
That's nice, isn't it? Although I mean, she's referring to a blog that I haven't seen any updates to for a while.
Know, I did think that. I was like, then it made me go, I'm going to go and blog something. I'm going to go and write something. I'm not sure she can ever appreciate how happy that made me. It was like, because I was feeling, oh, I've got a new day at school and I've got cold. And then I read this thing on Twitter. I was like, oh, on Sunday night, the night before your new school starts. It was just what I needed.
Oof.
Which probably also gave me the kick I needed to say to this room full of blokes, please do not assume that I don't know what I am doing. And I even said to him one point, because I would say something and then he would repeat it in his own words. And I actually said to him, I said, I'm not going to let you have the last word. Every time I say something, he'd go, yes, 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 and mansplain. And I literally said, I am not going to let you have the last word. Because I was
Jules Holland. We used to always go, Jules Holland, last note. He always had to have the last note on any jam. So, Jesus, let it go.
And because I was laughing at this stage, I was like, you're not listening. I'm just so, let's be clear. I'm not going to let you speak last. I am going to speak last.
Bash, bash.
So, Michael, how was your week?
How am I?
How are you?
I noted this week, I have had 2 days in a row that I was like, that was a good day.
Wow.
And just like, it wasn't like nothing special particularly happened. I just was in a good, there were work days, but I really like this studio space. I sort of was like the other Michael, on Monday morning, on Tuesday morning, I was like, I was sort of like, oh, well, I hope he's coming in today. I sort of miss him. It was like we have good chats, and it's always like I'm always like picking up a lot of information as we're talking, and it's good. And then like loads of these people were coming through as well, like different artists. And I got invited to something in a private club, like kind of like I'd already sort of been Facebook invited, but the guy that I just met a couple of weeks ago sort of came into my little room. Was like, how's it? Are you going to be coming to this thing? And I think they want to. It's kind of, and the stuff they're putting on is starting to feel a bit more like that sort of Berlin scene. And it's super local to me, so that's kind of exciting. And also like this guy that ran a record label that was kind of influential on me in the 90s was just like in my little room asking me what I do, and like it was just like kind of looming over me. I was like, okay, that's cool. No, not one of the sort of top tier, but like Wall of Sound is like I bought a lot of their vinyl back in the day, so it's like, oh, okay, you're the guy that released Propeller Heads and some stuff like that, Roixop. So
I've heard of both of them. That's cool.
There you go. So, well, yeah. So that was nice, and then just sort of like tidying up, and I plugged in my synths yesterday again. I did. Bad news. I have cooked my mechanical module yesterday.
Your stepper motor that took you ages to sort out.
Yeah, I cooked it. I was trying to figure out why it wasn't working, and I know it needs more power. And then I was sort of plugging power into it, and I was like, is this going? And then it was like smoke, 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 smoke. I was like, oh, God, okay, well, I may need to replace some parts, just as long as I don't have to replace the motor. So that's annoying. my famous motor is dead. But yeah, I'm having a good time.
Excellent.
So that's nice, isn't it?
That's very nice.
And I'll read out the compliment I woke up to today.
Go on.
If you're allowed to read out yours.
Yeah.
And this one is important to me. So it's someone, I sent an email out to all the Tech Day people, last week with my blank state stuff. And like, I got someone sort of emailed back. We were going to try and meet up anyway, but then I guess a colleague or someone of his commented, I love your voice. And much more the idea of open government, blah, 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 keep going. And then he was like, the voice is something I could listen to for hours as well, smiley face. And I'm like, I never, because I've always sort of like, in my head, my voice has always been like, well, actually.
That's how it is in my head as well.
Oh, thank you.
When you're nagging me.
Thanks. Well, thanks for, I didn't diss your compliment. And you are dissing, well, I suppose it is International Women's Day.
I'm not dissing your compliment.
You are.
I'm dissing your perception of yourself.
I'd finally found the confidence to own.
I was going to say.
No, honestly, like, I always sort of felt like, but I think doing the podcast as well has helped me kind of know what I sound like and realise that I don't sound like that, really, unless I want to. And I can sound like lots of different things. So it was nice.
Yes. I think that it sounds like they've got a bit of a crush on you there.
Maybe.
That's cool.
They both want to do stuff to me. So shall we read out? Well, do you want to read it, or should we take turns? Like Greta. So on February the 2nd, Greta Thunberg on Facebook posted this quite good summary of what she's about, which I really enjoyed. So since I was the last person to talk, do you want to sort of take? Do you want to read it for us?
Let's go. So recently, I've seen many rumours circulating about me and enormous amounts of hate. This is no surprise to me. I know that since most people are not aware of the full meaning of the climate crisis, which is understandable since it has never been treated as a crisis, a school strike for climate would seem very strange to people in general. So let me make some things clear about my school strike. In May 2018, I was one of the winners in a writing competition about the environment held by Svenska Dagbladet, a Swedish newspaper. I got my article published and some people contacted me. Among others was Bo Toren from Fossil Free Dalsland. He had some kind of group with people, especially youth, who wanted to do something about the climate crisis. I had a few phone meetings with other activists. The purpose was to come up with ideas of new projects that would bring attention to the climate crisis. Bo had a few ideas of things we could do. Everything from marches to a loose idea of some kind of a school strike, that children would do something on the schoolyards or in the classrooms. That idea was inspired by the Parkland students who had refused to go to school after the school shootings. I liked the idea of a school strike, so I developed that idea and tried to get the young people to join me, but no one was really interested. They thought that a Swedish version of the 0 Hour March was going to have a bigger impact. So I went on planning the school strike all by myself, and after that I didn't participate in any more meetings.
So, it is shocking, isn't it, when you first hear that someone's striking from school, because it's, and that's why it actually, a march is there's marches all the time and no one cares. So I think it is sort of like, okay, what? No, but you have to go to school. Yeah. You have to go to school. That's your job.
Yeah. When I first saw her, like this picture of a 15-year-old girl, but I find it amazing. It's very moving that a 15-year-old girl would, with a very rational explanation, decide not to go to school and go and sit outside the parliament and say, you have got to save my future. I think it's amazing, because for me, I just what made it the moment when I first encountered her, I want to use words like brave, I want to use words, but she's right.
She's right. It's like, I think that the problem she's facing is people will immediately judge her and it sounds like an easy thing to do to just not go to school.
Yeah. Because no one wants to go to school.
If someone's not asking what she's doing, which is she's sitting outside and she's doing it because of this climate thing. Like a lot of people, I guess, just don't ask why. They just hear that she's, skiving off school and just kind of like they're treating her as though that's the entire story. Yeah. So this is kind of the reason that she's sort of having to
explain herself. Yeah.
Explain herself.
It's this association that not going to school is something that many children strive for. I can have a day off school, a snow day, or the school closes, school. No. It's like something that kids want. And actually, I'm not sure that's strictly true. We all are delighted when we don't, you get unexpected bit of free time. But the idea that somebody would be doing this to skive is... It's a conclusion that they've jumped to, and they sort of assume that this person doesn't know any better, and that their parents are neglecting them, and but that's why it's shocking, and that's why it's a good idea. Yeah.
Right? That's why it's more interesting, a more impactful, a more remarkable thing to do than just going on a march. And
I think going back to that, I've definitely spoken about this story about the Polish protest against the reversal of the abortion rights, which they weren't 100% successful at, but the power of that protest was the distributed nature of the protest.
Yeah, yeah.
Politicians around the world are being reminded in pockets all around the world because of something this girl started.
When I told my parents about my plans, they weren't very fond of it. They did not support the idea of school striking, and they said that if I were to do this, then I would have to do it completely by myself and with no support from them. On the 20th of August, I sat outside the Swedish... So they just were like, no, you're not doing that. So it's not like... You can't blame it. You can't say that the parents were just like, yeah, we'll just let the kid do anything. She had to do it despite... not really having the approval of her parents. On the 20th of August, I sat down outside the Swedish Parliament. I handed out flyers with a long list of facts about the climate crisis and explanations on why I was striking. Here is a list of facts.
Yeah.
Sure. The first thing I did was post on Twitter and Instagram what I was doing, and it soon went viral. The journalists and newspapers started to come. A Swedish entrepreneur and businessman active in the climate movement, Ingmar Rentzhog, was among the first to arrive. He spoke with me and took pictures that he posted to Facebook. That was the first time I had ever met or spoken with him. I had not communicated or encountered with him ever before. That sounds like she's sort of like trying to dispel some rumour thing.
Some myth.
Many people love to spread rumours saying that I have people behind me or that I'm being paid or used to do what I'm doing. But there is no one behind me except for myself. My parents were as far from climate activists as possible before I made them aware of the situation. I'm not part of any organisation. I sometimes support and cooperate with several NGOs that work with the climate and environment, but I'm completely independent and I only represent myself. And I do what I do completely for free. I've not received any money or any promise of future payments in any form at all, and nor has anyone linked to me or my family done so. It's like, what are these conspiracy theories? It's funny, like, just hearing the response and not hearing the...
Yeah. The accusations.
It's like, you're being paid by the lobby,
the lobby to save the world.
The lobby that wants planet Earth not to be terrible. You're just doing it for the money. It just seems like it's just a very superficial interaction that leads people to respond like that.
Yeah.
But it's also, if people can't get their head around something, they'll just invent some bloody theory. Or they'll be like, oh, well, it couldn't just be because climate change is a real threat. That couldn't be it.
No.
That's just too far out of my...
comfort zone.
And is it, do you even... I think it's good that she's trying to actually talk to those people that are saying things like that, but at the same time, good luck. And of course it will stay this way. I've not met one single climate activist who is fighting for the climate for money. That idea is completely absurd.
It is. It is completely absurd. Yes.
Do you want to go?
I'm writing down that idea is completely absurd.
It is. I mean, it's stupid.
It's just
as we just said.
Yeah. Furthermore, I only travel with permission from my school, and my parents pay for tickets and accommodations. My family has written a book together about our family and how me and my sister Beata have influenced my parents' way of thinking and seeing the world, especially when it comes to the climate, and about our diagnoses. The book was due to be released in May, but since there was a major disagreement with the book company, we ended up changing to a new publisher, and so the book was released in August instead. Before the book was released, my parents made it clear that their possible profits from the book, which is titled in Swedish, will be going... will be going... It's probably something like... I don't know.
Look, let's look up the pronunciation. So if we go scenes from the heart, and then there's a little speaker there.
I mean...
Sinje ur hjärtat.
Very good.
Sinje ur hjärtat.
Okay. So the profits from the book, Michael has just read out, will be going to 8 different charities working with environment, children with diagnoses and animal rights. And yes, I write my own speeches. But since I know that what I say is going to reach many, many people, I often ask for input. I also have a few scientists that I frequently ask for help on how to express certain complicated matters. I want everything to be absolutely correct so that I don't spread incorrect facts or things that can be misunderstood. Which sounds like an incredibly sensible approach. It's like, I mean, because I think that obviously someone else is writing your speeches.
Yeah.
I mean, that is just...
Even if that were true, it doesn't,
So even if it was true, that's not wrong. Every politician in the world has speech writers. There's like people don't write their own speeches, and those that just speak, we see what happens when they do that. Like Donald Trump is a prime example of somebody who probably is not reading a speech. So yes,
I remember. I mean, I kind of saw this in my brother kind of like reacting to the MASH report and going, when Nish Kumar was kind of like doing a bit more of a statement, he was complaining that he was reading from an auto cue, and I'm like, what's that got to do with anything? He didn't write this. I think he probably did write a lot of it, but even so what? Like, what's that sort of weird, that reflex of, well, I mean, these aren't your words. You didn't write every single last syllable here, so why should I listen to any of it?
Yeah.
It's a weird reflex. It's a weird way of I don't know. There's got to be some fallacy. There's got to be in the fallacy list. I found this card game which was like fallacy something. It had all the different types of fallacies, fallacy bingo or something. But you could. I kind of would quite like to have a card to go, that is the fallacy of authority, that is attacking the speaker instead of the message, that is I think we could do with those as some little gifs or something. But I shall let you continue with the next bit, I reckon.
Cool. Some people mock me for my diagnosis, but Asperger is not a disease, it's a gift. People also say that since I have Asperger, I couldn't possibly have put myself in this position. But that's exactly why I did this. Because if I would have been normal and social, I would have organised myself in an organisation or started an organisation by myself. But since I'm not that good at socialising, I did this instead. I was so frustrated that nothing was being done about the climate crisis, and I felt like I had to do something. Anything, and sometimes not doing things, like just sitting down outside the Parliament, speaks much louder than doing things. Just like a whisper sometimes is louder than shouting. My mum's a master of the whisper.
But here's like so sort of reading. I didn't realise that she had Asperger's, and that was like, okay, right. So I can see how someone could get kind of narrow in on something like that now in a way that someone else wouldn't. But like one of my initial kind of like that sort of like little niggle when you first started talking about I found this amazing girl was that it sort of smelled a bit of that kind of like let's glorify individuals kind of mentality that I'm sort of starting to feel is a bit of a poisonous thing in our society. So I do think that sort of individualist activity should be defended a little bit. And I think this is a very good, rationale for doing something alone instead of trying to kind of be part of something bigger. Yeah. So that I think just to sort of call that out, that I do worry that we, there's this idea of individual greatness that we need to get past as a society if we're actually going to improve things. But what do you think? Do you have a reaction to that? Have I made you cross?
No, not at all. I think the thing is that, say, somebody like me who doesn't have Asperger's, I thought about doing a podcast and I think about doing things, but it's only when I get together with you that I do it. I am not. I need that. I keep forgetting the phrase. The social currency thing. I don't want to be I I don't want to stand out. Well, she's not doing it to stand out. She's doing it because she can't fit in.
Yeah, and she's doing it because it's one thing that she
can
do. Right?
Yeah.
And that's...
So, yeah, it's
fantastic.
for because she's not got that sort of, oh, everyone's looking at me embarrassment thing because of her diagnosis. Because she really, by her own words, like she's not good at it, she doesn't understand it, but it works two ways. It means that also you don't care what other people think. So she's not doing it as to promote herself, she's just doing it because this is the action that she can take. And she can take it far more bravely than, well, it's not even being brave, weirdly, is it? It's just doing it.
I think it's a smart plan.
It's a very smart
right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's a smart plan. She's, the context that she's in, the age she is, who she is, it's a smart idea. And
it is a very smart idea.
That's why it's remarkable. But it's great.
Yeah.
Also, so I'll continue, I think.
Yeah.
Also, there is one complaint that I sound and write like an adult. And to that, I can only say, don't you think that a 16-year-old can speak for herself? There's also some people who say that I oversimplify things. For example, when I say that the climate crisis is a black and white issue, we need to stop the emissions of greenhouse gases, and I want you to panic. But that I only say because it's true. Yes, the climate crisis is the most complex issue that we've ever faced, and it's going to take everything from our part to stop it, in quotes. But the solution is black and white. We need to stop the emissions of greenhouse gases. Because either we limit the warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius over pre-industrial levels, or we don't. Either we reach a tipping point where we start a chain reaction with events way beyond human control, or we don't. Either we go on as a civilization, or we don't. There are no grey areas when it comes to survival. I'm going to just let her have that, because I want to say, like, some of us can survive. We're talking about everyone surviving here. That's what we're sort of shooting for.
Yeah.
I think there'll always be some people around, whatever happens.
Well, yeah. There is now. Like, I read an article in the week. Well, I didn't read it because I was like, I'm not reading this. It's depressing. But the title of the article was, "When will the planet become too hot for human survival?" Because I think there is a. I agree.
Will aircon at some point cease to function?
I think. Her position is black and white, and that's right. It's the same as the vegan activist from last week. Like, if you're going to be an activist, your position has to be black or white.
Yeah.
It's everyone else around you who's going to reach compromises and work things out and all this business. That's not her role in this whole what she's doing. Her role is to be black and white. This.
And
panic.
You cannot be clear without having a simple message, without having a certain amount, having very clear boundaries around what you're saying. And she's right, she's not wrong,
She's not wrong.
So shut up, people. And she says, when I say I want you to panic, I mean that we need to treat the crisis as a crisis. When your house is on fire, you don't sit down and talk about how nice you can rebuild it once you put out the fire. Oh, no, that's what I'm kind of doing with my idea. Oh, no. Yeah. If your house is on fire, you run outside and you make sure that everyone is out while you call the fire department. That requires some level of panic. There is one other argument that I can't do anything about, and that is the fact that I'm just a child and we shouldn't be listening to children. But that is easily fixed. Just start to listen to the rock-solid science instead, because if everybody listened to the scientists and the facts that I constantly refer to, then no one would have to listen to me or any of the other hundreds of thousands of school children on strike for the climate across the world. Then we could all go back to school. I didn't realise there was loads of them.
There is loads of them.
even though I'd read this.
Is that the figure that did? But that's one of the nice things about reading out loud and talking to each other at the same time. Much more of it goes in.
Yeah.
It is literally thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands. And,
Take us home, Ivanka.
I am just a messenger, and yet I get all this hate. I'm not saying anything new. I'm just saying what scientists have repeatedly said for decades. And I agree with you. I'm too young to do this. We children shouldn't have to do this. But since almost no one is doing anything and our very future is at risk, we feel like we have to continue.
And there we go. And then she links to TED Talk. And thanks everyone for their support.
I think that it's unfortunate that she felt compelled to put out a statement like this.
Hey, look, it's the internet in 2018, 19. It's a horrible place.
Yeah, but I think I am glad it's a good summary of what she's doing.
Yeah. I think that's much more compelling, because all I saw when I first Googled her was like some sort of poem on Twitter, and I was like, well, that doesn't seem like it's going to be very effective. So sort of, I was like, who's this girl Ivanka's talking about? It's like, I should, yeah. But I've paid attention, and then when it was explained, I get it. Is there anything you'd sort of like? I don't know. What would you? Is there anything that's not she didn't cover there that you have been impressed by about her?
No, I think it's just the simplicity of what she's doing is incredibly powerful. There's a little there's an American wannabe. No, I'm being rude. There's a few.
This is where this individualism problem.
Yes,
this is what you've just done.
The thing about Greta, and it probably is a lot to do with her condition. Is it a condition, Asperger's? I don't know. Is that her diagnosis, as she calls it, I'll use her words, is that she's not precocious. She's not, because she's right, a 16-year-old certainly knows their mind and certainly should be able to write like an adult. If you know, I think the fact that her sort of what she describes as her, lack of social skills makes her not perform. She doesn't perform. She just says what she's going to say. If you watch her talks, like her Davos statement she says very powerful words, but she delivers them without any, like, she doesn't wave her hands around or like, look at me, or, she's not bothered. She's her whole persona is just, I've got no choice but to say these things. So listen.
Yeah. She's sort of like it's almost like the future of the human race is speaking to us.
Yes.
Like just directly, with no sort of ego, just like this is.
I think that's the bit, the absence of ego. And the fact that she can say these things, like she said you say that you love your children more than anything in the world, and yet you're ignoring the fact that they, their very survival is at risk. And she's, those aren't light words.
Yeah.
But and they are 100% true. How can you the thing that makes me have bad dreams or think about these things, the context of how life will be for my daughter and how she will, I don't want her, because already there are people thinking about whether or not they should have children, like, and I don't want anyone to ever have to think that, because that's a terrible, you shouldn't not have them because you're afraid that your politicians are not acting in a way that will sustain their survival. I mean, that's just outrageous.
I know how it feels to be betrayed, to your future torn away. Torn away.
As a parent, as an adult, I can do my very best to control my child's Maslow's hierarchy in terms of feeding her, cleaning her, talking to her, loving her, all those things. But I can't fix the whole planet by myself. I need everyone involved.
Yes. So that's why we need people like this.
Go, Greta.
I thought I'd just have, if we could kind of come up with a call to action from this episode. It's sort of like, what can you do to support Greta? And I sort of looked, but I don't think it's a matter of kind of sending her money or anything. I think it's literally just share everything she's doing, like with your people, and like just share this post that we'll put in the notes, and just try and get people to see that, she's doing something important. But what I did just uncover was a Vice article, the climate change deniers trying to discredit Greta Thunberg, which I'll link to, but I thought maybe just a quick skim to see what she's dealing with. So it sort of summarizes, so right-wing blogs were attacking her. Many people, so we've seen this. They reference the post we just read. So while the Global Warming Policy Foundation are keen to debunk the conspiracy of the teenager who cares about climate change, they're less sceptical when it comes to some other pretty out there ideas. Take the group's annual State of the Polar Bear report by Susan Crockford, a woman who's made a name for herself in recent years by stating that polar bears are doing just fine, no matter what the scientists tell you. Or their promotion of the theory that cosmic rays, not greenhouse gases, are causing global temperature increases. So just to add, the most notable piece that they talk about is in this Swiss magazine, Die Weltwoche, which investigated why Thunberg was getting so much support when another teen activist who campaigns against migration and globalism barely gets noticed. So people are making a false equivalency between climate change and globalism. Which is just
migration, anyway,
by which they are. I think there is anti-Semitism, isn't it? Like that globalism is code for like a dog whistle. I'm realizing for it's all run by by a secret cabal of globalists. So I mean, she's dealing with conspiracy theorists, and who are not rational, unfortunately.
No. So it's like arguing with the edges of an open source community.
Well, it's like arguing with the schizophrenic, as I have talked about in the past, which I know from personal experience doesn't get you anywhere. There is no strategy that can be found, quite honestly, to someone that will not engage in good faith with you, or is able to twist the fabric of reality to protect whatever their particular belief is. And it's worrying that so much of the world is sort of embracing that mentality or mental illness now. Yeah. So, on that lovely note, because we've got to kind of record quite a few, this is going to be a shorter episode, and so are the next couple probably, unless we can find another week. But we're already kind of like taking a bit too long. But let's do this and say thank you for listening. If you like the podcast, you can go to grandpodcast.com. Where can people find you, Ivanka?
People can find me at Ivanka on Twitter.
And you can find me at michaelforrestmusic.com. And what else can people do?
It would be delightful, and we would be very grateful if you could go write us some reviews and some stars on each episode, on any episode, on the podcast as a whole, on any platform that you listen on. All those kinds of things. Encourage people to listen. Tell your friends, that kind of stuff. That would be lovely.
And also come and buy a mug.
Oh yes, buy a mug. Woohoo.
I'm going to try and send. I've got this plan to send out a mug to my friends and family. Just send a load of mugs out, but also maybe perhaps mention that we have a Patreon in the process. Maybe after 5 months, the mug pays for itself. Anyway, thanks for listening, everyone.
Thanks
See
for
you
listening.
next time. Bye.
Bye.
And hashtag IWD, International Women's Month. International Women's Day. Bye.
Bye.